Greetings all, and welcome to another session here of Tuzi Talks. Today we're going to be talking about language assessment. In particular, we're talking about language assessment principles. These principles are pretty much your standard components when you're beginning to consider developing and or choosing an assessment tool. These assessment principles include practicality, reliability, validity, authenticity, and washback. And we'll just jump into the explanations and definitions of these right now. First of all, practicality. Practicality has to do with the doability of a test. How doable is this particular test? For example, regarding cost, is it too expensive for your students or for the school? Maybe it's a nice test, but I can't afford it. I have, for example, had worked in places where students didn't have enough money to go out and take a TOEFL test, or worse, take a TOEFL test every semester or every quarter. Thank goodness you have things like the institutional TOEFL, which is less expensive and more doable. There are also more free ways to do this. But cost could be a variable in deciding whether a test is practical or not. Another would be the instructions. Are the instructions easily understood? Are they understood for the people who are administering the test? Are they understood for the people who are taking the test? You should review those types of questions and make sure they're not a stumbling block to what's actually being assessed, because they can be. The actual instructions can impede the more accurate collection of the assessment that you want. So you want to look at that. Is it practical that way? Is it practical with regard to time? Is it going to take too long, or you're not going to have enough time to collect the information that you need? Are your students going to become fatigued? So you want to look at the amount of time that it's going to take and make sure that your students are prepared to handle the amount of time that's there. Finally, can it be corrected in a timely manner? Can it be corrected and returned in a timely manner? Again, you have some tests that are paper-based and you have to send them away to be corrected. And it may be that as you're sending them away, there's too much time involved and you need the answers right away, like a placement test. Right? Normally you need answers for a placement test right away if you're going to be doing all students at the beginning of the semester, the beginning of the quarter or the term. So how quickly can you turn this around? Also, how much time is it going to take to actually do it? Is there going to be a machine that's doing it? Are you going to have multiple people who are involved in assessing or rating or correcting a test? How much time is involved there? Do you have that time? So practicality, one area that you want to look at, one principle that you want to look at when you're deciding and or using an assessment tool. Another would be reliability. Reliability actually is testing the consistency of a test. The test consistently yields the same results in a given population. So if you have the same type of people, the same group of people coming through, will you continue to have the same type of answers over and over again? Okay, and if you do, then a test is going to be reliable. An assessment is going to be considered reliable. There are a variety of areas that you can deal with regard to reliability. One would be the test components, the actual test, the actual questions, the actual directions or the rubric. Are they going to be clearly understood every single time? Are they going to give you the same answers every single time? Are they simply and clearly understood? That's going to be one reliability variable. Your students are going to be another reliability variable. Your students can change from time to time because of a change in their own life. Let's just say, for example, they're tired. They stayed up all night doing something, so they come in to take the exam and they're not prepared, or they had an illness in the family, or they have a lot of undue stress for some reason. Some event happened and they've got a lot of stress, and so that could mar the score results. Okay, because that would be a reliability issue. Another variable could be rater reliability. And when I talk about rater reliability, these are people who are going to take the assessment and rate it, evaluate it. Are these people who are going to be rating this assessment, are they tuned, synchronized to give the same type of score? For example, when I worked at a college in the United States, we would rate every freshman student who came in, and they had to write a freshman essay, an application for admissions, an admissions essay. And we had 30, 40 people getting together in groups of together, and we would have to be calibrated, all being able to grade and assess essays the same way. So we had to go through training so that we all understood what an essay A was or an essay 4 was. And so we had to have that. We had to have this inter-rater reliability. All of us were rating the same way. And so that's going to be another variable. Do you have inter-rater reliability? And there are ways to get that. Intra-rater reliability. Is one rater consistently performing, consistently marking the assessment the same way over and over again? So just for example, you may have an assessment that includes 7 or 8 parts, and 2 of the parts are essentially the same because you're trying to confirm that someone actually knows this. Is the rater grading them both the same way, or isn't he? That would be intra-rater reliability. Test administration reliability. Is the test being administered the same way over and over again? Are the test situations set up the same way every time? Does the test administrator come in and prepare the room, prepare the AV, prepare the chairs? Is it timed properly? Does it begin on time? Are the instructions read the same way? It's got to have that same consistency over and over. And then, of course, the actual test itself, the text within it, within the assessment, is it going to be reliable? Is it going to be understood and consistent over time? There are a lot of variables involved with reliability as well. A lot of things that can mar or change reliability. We've got practicality, reliability, and then, of course, the most important one would be validity. And validity is, and let me quote here, an integrated evaluative judgment on the degree to which empirical evidence and theoretical rationales support the adequacy and appropriateness of the inferences and actions that are based on the test scores and other modes of assessment. Boy, that's a mouthful, right? An integrated evaluative judgment. So it's a judgment on the degree to which the theory and evidence support the inferences and actions that you take as a test administrator, as a test administrator, the actions and inferences that you take. Okay, and of course those actions and inferences are based on the scores and other modes of assessment. So your judgments that are based on evidence and theoretical rationales, how appropriate are they? How adequate are they based on the tests that you're taking? So validity is kind of hard to nail down. Let's break down it into a couple more detailed things, because there are a variety of types of validity. Okay, most common would be that a valid test measures exactly what it proposes to measure. Are you actually measuring what you're supposed to be measuring? You may not be. Case in point, I was administering a grammar test. And it was a straight grammar test. It wasn't an all-inclusive type of test, but it was a grammar test. And then after the students took the grammar test, they graded the test, and then they analyzed the test. And one of the things that we discovered as they're analyzing the test was that some of the students got something wrong because they didn't know a vocabulary word, not because they didn't understand the grammar. Okay, so that particular question then, of course, did not have content-related validity, that particular question. Okay, because the content was getting in the way of what I was hoping to actually measure, which was grammar knowledge. The criterion for the exam was grammar-related, not lexical-related. So the materials that you're trying to assess, are they actually being assessed, or is it something else? So that's content-related validity. Does the test not measure unrelated or interfering variables, just as what I was mentioning before? There are unrelated materials or interfering variables. In my case, it was vocabulary that I introduced into the test questions that my students didn't understand and caused them to choose the wrong answer. Had I chosen a different word or set of words that were understood by the students, then they would have been able to get the right answer. So that was content-related validity. Another type of validity, a valid test measures whether the criterion of the test has actually been achieved. And that's criterion-related validity. Are the objectives that you set out for the test actually being achieved? And that's what that is. And does the test rely on actual empirical evidence? Are you actually using and developing test questions that are based on research? And a lot of the assessments that are in existence today actually are based off of research related to ways to assess. So there's a lot of good information out there on this. And we'll talk about different types of assessments later on, but there's been lots of research in this area with regard to assessment. Next one. Is the test supported by research-based arguments? In other words, are the philosophical foundations for the test, for the assessment, are they supported by the research? That would be construct-related validity. I think I mentioned before something about a C-test, and how a C-test, which is basically a test where every nth word, the last half of the word is missing, and the student needs to fill in that word. And this is based on very sound theory for determining the proficiency level of students. So it's a very good test. It's based on sound research. So it has construct validity. And that's a good thing. Unfortunately, it doesn't have another type of validity, which we'll talk about in just a minute. A valid test, does it offer useful, meaningful information about the test taker's ability? This is really one of the main things you're trying to get out of the test. You're trying to find meaningful information about your test takers. You're trying to find meaningful information about the people who are doing this assessment. Are they reaching the goals we want them to reach? Are they identifying what their strengths and weaknesses are? Have they overcome a strength and or a weakness? So really, this is the main thing that we're looking for as far as giving out an assessment. We're trying to get information about our users. And does the test actually do that? I don't know about you, but I get frustrated when I have to take a test and I only see a score, I only see a number. I don't get to go back and look at the test to see what the answers were, see what the problems were, that type of thing. Next type of validity would be a consequential validity. Has the impact of the assessment, the impact before and the impact after, has it been taken into account? And what I mean by that is someone is getting ready to take a test, but the test has been presented in such a way that they're nervous, that they're anxious, and so this high affective pressure causes them to not do well on the test. That would be before consequential validity. And then there's after they take the test. Do they get good results? Do they get good feedback? That would be good consequential validity with regard to washback. They're getting good information back to help them learn. We'll talk a little bit more about washback in a couple of minutes. So what are the consequences? And are those consequences being taken into account? Lastly, do the students actually believe the test is testing what you're telling them it's testing? The students who receive the test, they believe that it's relevant and useful. Okay, and that's called face validity. On the face of it, does it look reliable? Does it look valid? Does it actually appear to measure what it's supposed to be measuring? A little earlier, I talked about C-tests and how C-tests, you blank out every nth word, the last half of the word, so that the students have to fill in those words. Well, that has very good construct validity, as I mentioned before, and it reliably indicates a student's proficiency. Unfortunately, it doesn't have face validity. There are many students who complained when they would take such a test that it didn't appear to be an actual language test. This is just a spelling test, they would say. This isn't an actual indicator of my language ability, and they were upset. They didn't think it was a good test. Okay? So the test had construct validity. It actually gave the results and was founded on good theory, but it didn't have face validity. Students didn't believe that it was actually testing what we told them it was testing. So that would be face validity. As you look at validity now, there are a lot of things that are involved in this as well. This is one that's a little harder to nail down, but there are ways to verify that you do have content validity and consequential validity and then face validity. And that's validity. Let's now move on to authenticity, which is a rather simple concept. Basically, all we're looking at with authenticity is that the assessment that's being given is an assessment that may appear in real life. How well did the characteristics of the task correlate to the target language? So the assessment that you're giving, the task that you're giving, or the test that you're providing, are the components in it actually going to be encountered in the real world? Actually going to be encountered in the native language and native culture? So that's all authenticity is. And for language assessment and language teaching and language learning, the more authentic, that doesn't overwhelm the student, the better, right? An authentic test contains language that is natural, contains quote-unquote real language. It includes linguistic items that are in context. Okay, they're not isolated, so that when you're giving an assessment, if you're giving a multiple choice test, you should have things written up in such a way so that they can understand what the context is as they're using this particular word. You may also provide a test where they're trying to determine what the context is. But regardless, the linguistic items need to be in context. And finally, includes tasks that replicate real-world tasks, okay? Okay, we've already said that. So authentic is just trying to make it as real as possible. Now, there are schools throughout the world where non-native speakers create assessments. They create tools and tests and assessment tools like that. Some of them do very well. Some of them do horribly wrong. Who do horribly bad, I mean. Because they don't understand or they haven't had the experience to live in the second culture, the second language. And I've had examples where on TV where native speakers of English would take a test from some university in Japan, and the test was made by non-native English speakers, and the native speakers who took the test failed or did poorly because of the way the test was written. It was not an authentic test, and the questions were difficult to understand, and the answers were not obvious. And so if you're not having material that is authentic, that's going to be a detriment to, obviously, to the assessment. You're going to collect less reliable, less useful information. And that's authenticity. Lastly, we'll look at washback. And washback is basically the feedback that you get and how useful is it. So say, for example, you give a test and the student receives the results of the test, and the result is they get, they get an 88. Or they get a B+. How useful is this information for the student? Yes, it's a grade, but how useful is it for them to help them improve their language? Not very. Okay, that would be bad washback. So here are some questions, or here are some comments related to washback. Washback should help a teacher become a better teacher. So the teacher creates some materials or some assessment, and the assessment results should allow the teacher to become a better teacher, to improve on their craft, to make things run more smoothly, more efficiently. It should also help the students learn from the tests. And so this means that the washback that you get should encourage students to want to learn more, help them learn from the test. Getting a score of 88 is not going to help the student very much at all, other than that they now know, hey, I did fairly well. What were my weaknesses? I don't know. What were my strengths? I don't know. Okay? You let them see the test or give them other feedback, that's going to be better for them. So you want to provide feedback for both students and teachers. Okay? Providing feedback is the best way to achieve good washback to both the test takers and the test developers. In a sense, the assessment that you're giving actually kind of functions like a diagnostic component here, because it allows them to see their strengths and weaknesses. And so that's the nice thing when you have good washback. When the results of the test are given back, and there's some rich description to help the test developer or the test takers, the assessment takers, learn about their mistakes, learn about their weaknesses so that they can make them stronger. And that would be good washback. Just to let you know, there's also bad washback. You could have negative washback wherein the test discourages a learner, the test discourages a teacher. And so we want to try to avoid bad washback. We want to try to use the assessment as an encouraging tool, not as a discouraging tool. And lastly, how do we apply some of these principles to an actual assessment? Well, we have to ask a bunch of questions when we look at an assessment tool, right? For example, are the procedures practical? Is an obvious one, right? Is the test reliable? You need to find out whether it is reliable. If you're making the test, you need to go through a process of ensuring reliability of the test. And we'll talk about that in another video with regard to making tests reliable. And is there a way for you, the test developer, to ensure greater reliability? And there are things that you can do as far as setting up the room and the environment in such a way that you can achieve greater reliability. Other questions. Does the assessment demonstrate content validity? Has the test designer considered the impact of the assessment? Are the procedures biased toward the test taker? All of these are related to validity. And so you want to make sure that it has content validity, that you've considered the impact of the test on the test takers, and that if at all possible, you make things look easy, you give the benefit of the doubt to the test takers. Okay, so you give them extra help, you give them extra prep, you give them opportunities to have a practice type of opportunity, so they know when they walk in that they know what they're doing and that the assessment is actually going to assess their abilities and not any interference. Last two questions. Is the test as authentic as possible? Does the test provide beneficial washback? Beneficial what? Beneficial washback. You're going to get that good benefit coming back from the exam. And those are some of the questions that you may want to ask as you're looking at an assessment tool. And that's all I have for this session. I do thank you for stopping by. If you do have any more questions or comments, you can always post them down below.